Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of my sweater tutorial. In this video, we're going to be working on the sleeves and attaching everything together. So you can see that I have one sleeve pre-made. This is my gray and pink side. For the one I'm making in this video, it's going to be gray and purple. And in this video, you're going to be using the same supplies. So I will be using my 5.5mm crochet hook, my scissors, and a threading needle. And I think I mentioned this in part 1, but for my purple, I am using the color Lilac. This is the Big Twist value yarn. And also, please excuse my nails in this video. I'm filming this part a week later and I haven't had time to repaint. But before we get started, I wanted to mention that, so you can see here, this is the bottom part of my sleeve. And then as you move upwards, you're going to see that it expands. And for the length of your sleeve, so you're not going to make it exactly all the way up to your shoulder. It kind of depends on how you made your top. Well, the middle part of your top, because I'll try to insert some clips. But so basically I have my sleeve up to about right here, the middle part of my sweater. You're going to want to lean it up against your body, and you're going to see how far you want your sleeve to be. So it kind of depends on how long you want it to go down onto your arm. I didn't make mine too long. So as you're going to see in this clip that I'm going to insert in, I'll insert my sleeve, my arm into the sleeve, and then I'll lay the blue part of the sweater onto my body to see where exactly I should be stopping when I am crocheting the length of my sleeve. Guys, so let's first get started with the rib portion of our sleeve. So I'm going to be taking my gray yarn and I'm going to be making a chain. So first we have to start off with a slip knot, and I like to hold mine yarn in half. Then I'll just grab onto it and twist. Then with this loop right here, I'm just going to go in and grab the yarn and pull it through. Then I'll take my crochet hook, insert it into the loop, and just tighten it down. Next, we're going to be creating a chain, and for the chain, you can make it any number you like depending on how thick you want it to be. I'm going to be making it a chain of 6 because I want it to be the same length as the neck. So what we're going to do is first start off by chaining 1. So you're just going to yarn over your hook and pull through. So that's 1, yarn over, pull through for 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Next, you're going to single crochet back down into the chain, and you don't want to go into the chain that's closest to the hook. So not this guy right here. We're going into the second one, and you're going to be doing a single crochet. So let's poke your hook through, grab that yarn and pull it through. You have your 2 loops on the hook. Let's yarn over and pull through both. And because I'm going into the second chain, I should have a stitch count of 5. So this is 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is going to be exactly how we started off our sweater. So when we did the first rib portion, so basically you just want to now chain 1. So yarn over your hook, pull through, and then you want to turn your work. And we're going to be single crocheting into the back loops only. And remember, a chain does count as a stitch. So that was 1. Now I'm going to single crochet into the back loop only. And remember, don't go into this little corner stitch right here. You want to go into the next one. So not that corner one, the second one here. So this is 2. Remember, because the chain does count as a stitch. And then this is 3, 4, and 5. You just want to repeat these steps until this is long enough to fit around your wrist. So I will demonstrate 2 more times. So first, let's yarn over our hook, pull through. That was a chain 1, and then we're turning our work, and then we're single crocheting into the back loops only. Remember, that chain does count as a stitch. So that was 1. This is 2, 3, 4, and this one is 5. We're doing it into the chain stitch, and 5. So now I'll demonstrate 1 more time before I finish this off camera. But first, let's start off by chaining 1. So I just yarned over, pull through. Now I'm turning my work, and then I'm going to single crochet into the back loop only. You do not go into this stitch right here. You're going into this one, and we're going into the back loops only. So this is 2, this is 3, 4, and 5. going into the chain for my last one. And now I will finish doing this until I can have it wrapped around my wrist, and then I'll be right back. But this is what it currently looks like. So it is much smaller than the original band we did for the bottom of the sweater, but I do want it to be a little bit thinner because I feel like for me personally, it kind of look weird if it's too thick for the wrist part. But yes, I will be back, guys. So I just finished crocheting this long enough to fit my wrist. So I'll show you. Excuse the hairy arms, but yeah, so this is what it looks like. It doesn't need to be too tight or too loose because, you know, the yarn will stretch, but also remember we do have to sew this closed as well. But again, it's not too tight on my wrist. And now we can move on to the top part. And for the top part, we're just going to create, let me find my spot. I was just figuring out which way it was going, but for this part we're now just going to be single crocheting this top part right here because we want a nice little edge, because we will be crocheting upwards this way with our second color, well, if you're using two different colors. But now what we're going to do is just let's just go ahead and single crochet the top. So let me enter my hook back in. I'm not going to chain anything. I'm actually just going to go right into single crocheting. Now, because I've already pre-made one of this, I already know how much I need to go for the top part. So for mine, I'm going to single crochet 24. You do want an even number. So however many you need to single crochet, just make sure it's an even number. So let's just go in. I'm going to single crochet into this right here. So this is 1, 2, 3, and remember, this is the same way that I've been showing you in the previous video, where I'll single crochet into any spot that I feel will look best, where it's not like too bunched up or like too far apart from each other. So right now I have 3, and then sometimes I'll go into like this little spot right here where there's not really like an opening or anything. So this is 4, and then sometimes I'll go into this opening right here. That's 5, and then sometimes I'll like skip this and then go into the next one. It just kind of depends on how it's looking at the moment, but right now I'm just going to skip it and go into the open stitch. And then let me just show you, so you can see, like, you know, it's not like too bunched up together or like too far where you can see that it's tugging onto the yarn. But I'll just finish single crocheting this top until I get to the end, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so right now I have 23 across the top. I'm just going to do my last single crochet into this spot right here. And then remember, please make sure it's an even number. And now I'm going to take my scissors because I will be changing my colors. If you're not changing your color, that's fine. You're just going to chain 2, and then we're going to do our double crochets, but I will be chaining it. So I'm going to cut off this yarn. And now I'm going to take my second color, which is this purple right here. And I'm just going to fold the ends so I can have this little loop right here. And I'm just going to push it through this loop and then pull the gray yarn down. And now on the back side, I'm just going to tie all of these pieces together just to make sure it doesn't get loose when we start crocheting. So I'm tying the purple to the gray. I'm going to tie 2 knots. Okay, so for this first round of our double crochets, we're going to be increasing. So what you're going to do is first chain 2. So yarn over your hook, pull through for 1, yarn over again, pull through for 2. Then let's turn our work, and we're going to be single crocheting. Okay, sorry, I paused for a minute because I was thinking, but I was going to single crochet over this like I did in part 2, but because I'm going to be increasing this, I don't want anyone to get confused. So instead, at the end, I'm just going to use a threading needle, and I'll just like push it through the stitches instead of crocheting over it because I want you guys to see the stitches. So let's start with our first row. So just to recap, what we did was chain 2, turn our work, and now we're going to start off with an increase into the first stitch. So remember, we don't go into our corner stitches, we're going into the next one, so this one here, and we're increasing with a double crochet. So in case you forgot what a double crochet is, let's yarn over our hook, and then let's go into our next stitch, so this one here. Grab the yarn, pull it through. We have our 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2. We have 2 loops left, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And then to increase, you have to do that one more time into the same stitch. So yarn over your hook once again, insert it into the same stitch, pull that yarn through. We have our 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2. We have 2 loops left, yarn over, pull through the last 2. Now that we have our increase into that stitch, we're going to follow that by doing 1 double crochet into the next stitch. So let's yarn over your hook, insert it into the stitch, grab the yarn, pull it through. We have our 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So basically throughout this whole thing, you're going to alternate between increases and then 1 double crochet. So going into my next stitch, I'll start off with an increase, but first let's do our first double crochet into it. So grabbing that yarn, pulling it through, there's my 3 loops, yarning over, pulling through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. I have to increase into this one, so remember we have to do 2 into it, so I'm doing it again. Going into the stitch, grabbing the yarn, pulling it through. There's my 3 loops, yarning over, pulling through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. Now you have to follow that by doing 1 double crochet into the next stitch. So there's a next stitch. Let's yarn over, insert it into the stitch, grab the yarn, pull it through. We have our 3 loops, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So now you just want to repeat that until you get to the end, and I will demonstrate once more before I go off camera. So into my next stitch, I have to do my increase. So going in there for my first double crochet, there's the 3 loops, yarning over, pulling through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2, and I have to do that one more time into the same stitch because again, this is an increase. Now I'm going to follow that by doing 1 double crochet into the next stitch. And now I'm just going to repeat that until I reach the end, and it's just going to expand a bit more. So I'll do that off camera and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I just finished my first row of the purple. This is what it looks like, and I did end off with an increase into that last stitch. So moving on now, we're just going to be doing a couple double crochet rows. So I'll demonstrate this to you and then I'll explain how long you should make it. Well, it kind of depends on each person, but let me show you the next row. So for the next row, we're going to chain 2. So let's yarn over hook, pull through for 1, yarn over, pull through for 2. And then let's turn our work. And now we're just going to double crochet this entire row. Remember, we don't go into those corner stitches. We're going into this next one here, and we're doing our double crochet. So just yarn over your hook, insert it through the stitch, pull some yarn through, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And now you just want to repeat that all the way through. So I'll show you one more time. I just yarn over, going through the stitch, pulling some yarn through. And then you're doing this for a couple more rows because to create the length basically from your wrist until like almost up to your elbow. Let me get my other piece. So this is the pink piece that I have. And you can see it starts to increase about like right here. So I'll show you it against my arm if I can get it on camera. So this right here is the rib part. So it would go about right here. And then you can see it starts to curve upwards because I'm starting to expand later on. But basically I'm going to keep this length or this width until about up to my elbow. So I hope that makes sense, but yeah, I'm going up to about right here where it starts to reach my elbow, and then I'm going to start to increase. Now, in case you're wondering, I will measure this for you. This is from my measurement, but this is before the gray, or I mean, sorry, this is right at the pink, and then I'm going to measure until where I start to increase so you can see the curve because it starts to go outward more. So I would say this is at about 9 inches before I start doing the increases, and then so this part right here is the increases because I need to make sure it fits, you know, the upper part of my arms. So I will just keep doing these crochet rows. So I'll keep doing these double crochet rows until I get almost to my elbow because that's when I feel like I need to start increasing because my arm gets, you know, bigger up there. So I will just keep doing my double crochet rows. Actually, I'll show one more row and then I'll officially go off camera to finish that part or that length part. I just finished my first row of all double crochets, so you can see that it kind of bunches up just a bit, but that's how it's supposed to look because this part is a little bit bigger than this rib portion right here. So when I do fold it in half like this, you can see that it expands just a tiny bit. But now I'm going to keep doing my double crochet rows because I'm creating the length. But let me just show you it on my arms so you can see that there's just a little bit of room in there. So now I will show this one more time before I go off camera. But once you get to the end, we want to do our double crochets by first chaining 2. So at the end, let's yarn over, hook, pull through for 1, yarn over again, pull through for 2. Then we'll turn our work. Now let's double crochet. So again, don't go into these corner stitches. We want to go into this one right here. So, oops, I almost forgot to yarn over, go through that stitch, pull some yarn through. We have our 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. Now, because this is repetitive, I won't show too much, but just remember to always chain 2 at the end, turn your work, and then just double crochet that row. And then I will be back after I finish the length of how far I want mine to go. Okay guys, so I'm back with my sleeve, and this is what it currently looks like. So you can see it's not too long. It just kind of reaches, let me fold it in half. So it almost reaches to my elbow. It kind of just stops like right before here. Oh, my elbow's right here. But yeah, it kind of like, it's just right at the bottom of my elbow. And that's how long I make mine. If you want to make yours a little bit longer, you can do that. But right now I do want to increase it so it can go outwards this way to make it a little bit bigger for my upper arm area. I feel like I could have done a couple more rows, but I do like the length of this right now. So now I'm going to increase for my next row. Also, remember to keep track of how many rows you're doing, because you know you're going to need another second sleeve. But the way that I count mine is, well, I do have a paper on a separate side, but I usually count these little things right here. I call them like just like the bumps. So I count this first one as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I have 11 right here. Also right now I ended off on the inside of my sweater, or the sleeve I mean. So this is the inside of it. For my next row, when I start the increases, I'm going to chain 2 and then turn it over, and then I'll be on the outside of the sleeve. So I know I said, you know, this side is the inside and the other side is the outside. I know it looks exactly the same, but I do feel like when you crochet, I feel like you can tell like the difference. Plus I do have like all these little pieces on the inside of it. So that's kind of why I call that part the inside. But anyways, let's start our increasing rows. For these increasing rows, I will demonstrate 4 times before I officially go off camera to finish it, because they are repetitive. Now that we have this half of the sleeve done, I'm going to count this as a new row just because it's easier. And with these rows, you're alternating between 2 things. So this first row we're doing is going to be an increasing row. And then once you switch off to your second row, it's just going to be all double crochets. You're not changing anything. You just want a little bit of length. So you're always going to alternate between increasing row and then pure double crochet row. And now for the increasing row, it's only going to be an increase on the sides of your sleeve. So let me show you what I mean. Let's go into our yarn, and then you're always going to chain 2 at the ends. So let's go in for 1 and 2. Then you're going to turn your work. Now this is how you're going to do all of the increasing rows when you switch off. So okay, sorry, I was interrupted, but with this increasing row, you always chain 1 at the end, turn your work, and then you'll increase into that first stitch. You don't go into this corner one, but then you'll increase into this, and then you're going to double crochet this whole thing until you get to the second to last stitch. Right here is the second to last stitch, and this is the chain. Remember, a chain does count as a stitch, so that will be 1, and then this is the second one. And then this one right here is where you're going to increase, and then you'll do a double crochet. So you want to start it off, or you're going to end it off basically the same way you started. So because you originally we did the chain 2 right here, and then you're increasing right here, you're doing the same thing to this side, because we only want to expand on the corners. Sorry, it's blurry, but yeah, we only want to expand on the corners, and it's just going to go outwards, basically like that. So first, let's just start off with our double crochet, well, our increase with the double crochets into this stitch right here. So I'm yarning over, going in for a double crochet. So that was 1, and then I have to do another one into the same stitch because that's an increase. Now what you're going to do is, like I said earlier, just double crochet until you get to the second to last stitch, because in that second to last one, we're going to do an increase, and then we can move on to row 2. So I'll just keep double crocheting until I get to the second to last stitch, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I made it to the second to last stitch, so which is this guy right here, and then that's my chain stitch that I'll stitch into at the end. But first, let's go into this one and do an increase with our double crochet. So I'm just yarning over, going through the stitch for one, and then I have to do one more into the same stitch, remember, because this is an increase. And then the last thing you should do is one double crochet into the chain stitch. So here's my chain stitch going in. And this is my increasing row. So I'll just show you really quick. As you can see, there's not much of a difference just yet, but we're going to be alternating with the increases. So it's going to gradually go outwards, and I do want it to be gradual because I personally didn't want a puff sleeve. So now let's go on to row 2. So for row 2, let's start off with our chain 2. So let's yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, and pull through. Then you're going to turn your work. And now we're just doing a double crochet row. So I'll just show you the beginning. Remember, don't go into those corner stitches right here. You're going into this next one. So let's go in with our double crochet. And then this row is going to be all double crochets. So really easy. I'm going to do this part off camera, but remember, we're just alternating between these two things. And sorry if I'm repeating it a lot, but I just want to be clear that row 1 is the increasing, and then row 2 is just all double crochets. And then after these two, you're just alternating between both of those. So I'll be back once I finish this row. Okay, so I'm towards the end of the second row, so I'm going to do my last 2 double crochets. So this one right here, doing a double crochet, and then I have to remember to do the double crochet into the chain, which is right here. So going in, and now we're going to alternate between those 2 steps, and I did say I would show it 4 times. So I will go ahead and show you rows 3 and 4. So for row 3, let's chain 2 first. So that's 1, 2, and then we're turning our work. Now what we're going to do is start off with an increase. Remember, don't go into those corner stitches. You want to go into the next one and do your increase. So we're increasing with our double crochet. So let's go in with our first double crochet, and then our second into the same stitch. And now what you're going to do is just double crochet all the way through this whole thing until you get to your last 2 stitches. So this is your chain right here, and that's your second to last one, and you're going to increase into that and just do 1 double crochet into your chain. So since we know how to do a double crochet already, I'm going to finish this part off camera until I get to that second to last stitch, and then I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I'm at my second to last stitch, so this one right here. I'm just going to do my increase. So I'm going in with my first double crochet, and then now I'm going in with my second double crochet into the same stitch because that's an increase. And then you should double crochet into your chain, and then that was our increasing round. So now we have to follow that by going in with a double crochet round next. So this is round 4, right, or row 4 right now. So let's first chain 2. Oops, that was 1. And then that's 2. Then I'm turning my work. And now this entire round, I'm just going to be doing a double crochet. Remember, no corner stitches right here. You're going into the next one. And then let's just do our double crochet. And then you're just going to repeat these steps. Now, when I come back, I'm going to explain a couple things before I officially go off camera because I do want to explain the length and just a couple things. So I'll be back once I finish this row. I'm back after finishing row 4, and this is what it currently looks like. So as you can see right here, you're starting to see more of a curve, and it's going to gradually go outwards even more. So before we keep going, I want to mention a couple things. So if your arm is slim, like from this portion all the way to the top, you don't have to keep increasing because, you know, it's going to be big for no reason. But because my arm is, you know, slim down here, then it gets a little bit, it's much wider at the top. That's why I keep increasing every other row. So if you have a slim arm and you find that these 2 rows of increases are fine, just keep it at this and just keep doing all double crochets throughout the top because you don't want this part to be too big if it doesn't need to be. Now, if your arms are bigger, what you can do is, double crochet, you should increase every row instead of doing the alternating increases and then double crochet row. So it all just depends on your arm, but I find that if you double crochet one row and then increase one row, it's nice and it gradually moves upwards, and I find that it does work most of the time. It always depends on your arm size, but that's just I just want to mention that really quick. And then another thing, so this is my written pattern, so hold on, I was just adjusting the camera, but this is how I keep track of mine. And as you can see, I'm currently, well, I just did row 4, which was a double crochet row. So for 5, I'm going back to an increasing row. And I just have this written down because I want to make sure that my other arm is the same as this one. So I stop at row 19, but yours is not going to be the same as mine because, again, we all have different bodies. So for yours, I'm going to insert a clip that I filmed prior to this, and it's just going to give you a suggestion of when you should stop increasing your length of the sleeve. I wanted to explain the sleeve portion just a bit more in case I wasn't making any sense earlier in this video, but I have my pre-made sleeve right here, and I'm going to insert this into my arm. And you can see that when I made mine, it doesn't reach all the way up to my shoulder, and that's because it currently reaches up to my wrist right here. If you want it yours longer, you can make it longer, but what you have to do is take your middle piece and lay it against your body. And so you can see that I have it laid against my body, and you can see that it kind of goes down to my shoulders already. So if it stops right here, and I just want to measure to see where it's going to go up to, because if I made this any longer, it's going to make my sleeve longer, and it just depends on how long you want this to come outwards, if you want to fold it up or not. I don't want it to fold up, I just want it to be right at the wrist, so that's why I only made the length up to about right here, so not all the way up to my shoulder. Again, it just depends on how long you want it, but this is how you just measure it. Lay it up against your body, see how much it extends outwards. You can see it that it goes down to my shoulder, so that's why this is how long I made mine. It doesn't go all the way up here. Okay, so now that I inserted that clip, just make sure that you make it to the right length and you're measuring it to yourself so your sleeve is not too long or too short. But actually, I just want to show one more row before I officially go off camera, because I'm afraid that I might have not explained it that great in the previous clips, so I will show again. So now, because I'm moving on to row 5, I have to do my increasing row. So I'm going to first chain 2 and then turn my work. And remember, for your increasing, you're only increasing on the 2 stitches at the corner. So I just did my chain 2. Now I don't go into this stitch. I'm going into this one here, and I'm doing an increase with a double crochet. So that was one, and this is my second one into the same stitch. You can see it's expanding even more now. So now I'm just going to double crochet all the way until I get to the second to last stitch before I do my, or so I can do my increase. But yes, now I'm going to double crochet until I get to the end. Alright guys, so I made it to the second to last stitch, you can see right here. And then that's my chain stitch. So let's go into that second to last one with an increase with our double crochet. So I just did 1 double crochet into that stitch. Now I'll do 1 more because that is an increase. Now I'm just going to do 1 double crochet into that chain stitch. So going into the chain, doing my double crochet. Now I'm going on to round 6, or row 6 I mean. I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and then now this row is just all double crochets. Remember, skip that stitch at the corner, going to the next one here. And then now I'm going to finish this off camera, and then I'll be right back to show you how to sew this close. But in that clip where I showed you how to measure it against your body, that sleeve was already sewed up together, but it doesn't need to be sewed up together for you to figure out how to measure it against your body. You just need to place that middle piece, that blue piece that I had, and I laid it against my myself, and then I saw where it ended off. So wherever it ended off is basically how long I would make this. So again, it doesn't need to be sewed up for you to figure it out. Just make sure the length is, if it's perfect to wherever or how long you want your sleeve to be. So anyways, now I'm going to finish the rest of this, and then I'll be right back to show you how to sew it together. Hey guys, so I just wanted to do a little check-in. I'm in a different location right now, but you can see that it's starting to expand outwards. So you can see here, it's just going out. So I'm currently on, well, I just finished row 10, and then I just have 9 more rows to go, but this is what it currently looks like. Alrighty, so I'll see you guys once I'm finished with row 19. Alright guys, so I finished my sleeve, and this is what it looks like. You can see it expanded a lot at the top. So now we're going to close this up. Also, the last row I did was a double crochet row, so I just went back this way, and now I'm on the right side. So to close this up, I am going to be using my crochet hook. If you want to sew this up instead, you can sew it and use a mattress stitch, which I think I'll be using later on for the other part of the shirt. But for this one, I want to do a single crochet closure, just because that's just my preference right now. But if you know how to sew, you can just sew the sides closed if you'd like to do that instead. Also, I just want to show you that when you single crochet this close, you're going to be able to see the pink on this side. It personally doesn't bother me, but if you want to change back to your gray yarn to, you know, single crochet this part, that's fine. But it doesn't bother me, especially if you're using one color, it's going to be fine. But for this top, you can see this is what the closure is going to look like. So first, we're going to be single crocheting the outsides together, and then you're going to flip it out, and then this is what it will look like. So this is the inside, this is the single crochet closure, and then once you flip it, it'll look like this. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is fold this in half, but you need to make sure that whatever side you want to be the outside of the sweater, it should be folded in here. So right now when I fold this part of the sweater is going to be the inside, because remember I said with this sleeve right here, this thing is going to be on the inside. So when you flip it, so let's single crochet this border up. I hope that made sense, but basically what you should be working on right now is the outside of the sweater. The outside should be folded like this, and you're looking at the outside right now. Anyways, I mean technically both sides look the same, but I don't know. You know how I told you earlier, like this part right here is going to go on the inside of my sweater? That's what I mean, because I have these little stitches out. I want this to be on the inside. So anyways, now let's sew this closed with our single crochet. So I'm not going to chain one or anything. I'm just going to go straight into both stitches, or the chain part. So I'm just going to go in from one side to the next, and I'm just single crocheting. So I'm taking the yarn and pulling it through. I have my 2 loops on the hook. I'm yarning over and pulling through both. Right, so basically you just have to do that all the way until you fully close this at the bottom. So I'll show the single crochet again. You want to go into the next spot that's close by. Make sure you go through. I'm going to go through this, and then into the next sleeve, pull through. There's your 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through both. So again, just insert your hook through, grab that yarn, pull it. You have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both. Okay, so let me do a couple more on camera. So going in, again, all single crochets. 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both. So just insert your hook through both sleeves or both sides, take that yarn, pull it through. We have our 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both. And then I'm just gonna quickly show you what it's gonna look like. So that's how it looks on the other side, which is the outside of the sweater. And this is the inside, because you want this seam to be on the inside so it doesn't show. But anyways, I'm going to sew this up, and then I'll be back once I reach the bottom. Okay, so this is what it currently looks like. And then we're going to single crochet this part now. And remember, this, it will kind of show through. If you want to change back to gray, you could, but it doesn't bother me. So I'm just gonna go through the end of the grays, the 2 grays, and just do my single crochet. It's basically the same thing, but it just might be a little bit harder because what you're crocheting into is kind of the chain spot, so it's a little bit smaller of a space. But yeah, I'm just gonna single crochet this, and then I'll cut off some of the yarn so we can close it up. So now let me just take some scissors and cut this. I'm gonna kind of cut a long piece because I want to sew it nicely. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull out the yarn, and then let me insert this through my needle. So I feel like I could have closed it a little bit more at the top, so I'm just gonna insert my yarn through the top one more time. You don't have to do this if you feel like you single crocheted right to the corner, but I need to because I didn't go all the way. And then now we're going to just make sure this is secured. So I'm gonna kind of put the yarn back over to meet these little pieces right here because I want to tie them together. So I'm just gonna go in and push the yarn through these stitches and just pull it back through the top. And then I'm going to tie these pieces together. Now I know this might not look the neatest, but I kind of just like tying the pieces a lot so it doesn't like fall apart on me or like undo while it's in the wash. Or I mean, so it doesn't come undone. But so now that I tied it a couple of times, so these little pieces right here, I feel like it's just too much to try to insert it into like stitches to hide it. So I'm just going to tie it one more time. And then I'm going to take some scissors and cut it because I tied it so many times now. I think it's going to be fine. Because these two pieces are kind of long, what I'm going to do, you can tie it a couple more times together if you want, but what I'm going to do here is just kind of insert it into a couple of the stitches. So let me insert it into the purple right here so it can just kind of hide in between these stitches right here. If you want, you can cut it off as well, but I kind of just want to hide some of this. And I do this because in case if it does come undone, I have something to tie it onto instead of like some short strands. So I'm just going to insert this into a couple of the stitches, and then I'll repeat the same thing with the gray. So you can see it's just running through those stitches there. So I'll finish this part off camera and then I will be right back. And then with excess yarn, I'm just going to cut it off. So I pulled the yarn through with the purple all the way up to here. I'm just going to cut off the rest, and then I'll do the same with the gray as well. And then now what you can do is just flip this inside out. And this is what the sleeve looks like. So you will need to pause this video because you're going to need to create a second sleeve. And you can see I have mine here. I have my pink and purple. I'm so excited because I'm almost done with this. But when you're ready, we're going to move on to sewing everything. So you're going to see that in the next clip. So the first thing we're going to sew is our top, or the middle piece. We're going to be starting off with the rib neck part to the shoulder. This is how we're going to sew it. If you want to do a single crochet, you can do that, but I'm actually going to be using a mattress stitch. And for this, I like to have my outside pieces on the outside. So basically how your sweater is looking, you know, not the inside of your sweater. The inside of your sweater should be facing down for both of them. And then we're going to start off with the corner. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see, but so you can see this is the neck right here, and we're meeting it right at the middle. And then this is the edge of the shoulder part of our sweater. Okay, so just to repeat that again, right now what we're doing is the mattress stitch, and we're sewing the shoulder part closed. And I will be using a blue color, or the blue yarn, to match this. And for this, we're not going to be flipping it out, so make sure whatever you're showing for the outside is going to be the outside, because we're not flipping this in or out like we did with the sleeve. Okay, so first let's take your yarn and insert it into the threading needle. And here's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to take my needle and go through one side and attach it right next to the other. So I'm going to pull this through. To make sure you have enough yarn so you can sew this one side up. We're only working a piece at a time because I feel like it will be easier. But for this mattress stitch, what you're going to do is you're going to go from this side to the next. So you saw that I just insert my yarn through to this side. So now I'm going to come back over here to this piece. And then I'm going to go into, sorry, it's kind of blurry. Okay, so I'm going to go into this stitch, so this next one. So you can see I already inserted it into this one when I originally attached it. So now I'm moving on to the next stitch. I'm going to poke it through, but I'm also going to poke it through back up into the next stitch. So this is what it looks like, and I'll show that one more time. I'm going into this stitch, going down, but I'm going to go right back up into the following stitch after that. And then I'll just pull straight out. And then this is what it looks like. You can pull it a bit to tighten it, but I kind of want to show you it with it open so you can see what it looks like. I'm just going to repeat that to the other side. So going into this stitch, I'm just mirroring it. So I'm poking it through, and then I'm going to poke through back up into the next stitch. So that's what it looks like. Now I'm just going to pull through. So this is what the middle looks like. Then I'm going to go back to this side and do the same thing. So I'm going to go in this stitch, poke it through. but then I'm going to poke back up into the stitch right after it. Pull through, and then I'll repeat back on this side. So I'm going into the next stitch on this side and then right back up. And then I'll show you what happens when you pull it. So if you pull on these pieces, it will close it up. And then this is what it looks like on the inside. So I feel like I don't like the look of this to be on the outside. That's why I don't flip it. And I kind of like the look of this side better, but that's just my personal preference. So now let me just show that again. I'm going to go into this stitch, poke it through. Then I'm going to poke back up into the next stitch over. Pull it through. Same thing to this side. You're just mirroring it so it can match up. But I'll keep repeating this until I get to this part, and then I'll come back for the gray. Okay, so then when you reach the gray, you're literally doing the same thing. If you want to change colors, you can, but I'm leaving it the same because I feel like it doesn't matter too much. So I'm just doing the same thing. Going back to this side, and then going to the gray. So I feel like it's kind of hidden, but yeah, you're just sewing it up the same way. Okay, so then when you get to the top, I kind of like to stop right here and just insert my threading needle straight through. So that's what it looks like. And then I'm going to flip it over. So this is the inside of the sweater. So you can see that's what the seam looks like on the inside. And then I'm just going to push this yarn back to the blue so I can secure it a bit more. So I'm just pushing it straight through those stitches, and I'm going to pull through. And then when I get over here, I'm going to do that closure that I usually do with the loop. So I'm going to hold on to one side with my thumb, and then I'll take my needle and push it through that seam. I'm not pulling all the way. You can see my thumb is holding that yarn. I have that loop still. I'm just going to now put my needle through the loop, and that creates like a little knot. That one's not going to be as secure, but you're going to do that a couple more times. So again, taking my thumb, holding that yarn, poking my needle through a stitch, pulling it but not all the way, still where I have the loop. Take this needle, pull it through the loop, and just do that a couple more times until you feel like it's really secure. So now we have one side done. This is what it looks like, and on the inside this is what it looks like. You can go ahead and cut off this yarn, or you can weave it through, whatever you prefer. I'm going to cut mine off. And on this side, you want to cut off the yarn so you have enough to sew the arm on still. So I have some yarn here. I hope it's long enough. If it's not long enough, you can always tie on some more yarn. But before we get to attaching this arm, we're going to do the same thing to this side. And let me grab some more yarn. Okay, so with this side, you're attaching it the same exact way. So I'm just going to get you started on, well, in case you need a little reminder, but I'm not going to show the whole thing. So first, let's just take our threading needle and our yarn. And then once we have that weaved through, you want to take your threading needle and insert it into the bottom stitch. And then, is that the bottom? Yeah. And then I'll go straight into the next piece to do the same thing. Just insert it straight through and pull through. And now we're going to sew up. Okay, so I'll show this just a couple times, but once you insert it through, you want to go back to this side, and then you want to go into the next stitch, push it down, and then you want to push it back up, but into the stitch that follows right after it. So you can see here, and then I'm going to pull through, and then you just want to repeat to the other side. So going into this next stitch, pushing down, and then pushing back up into the stitch that follows right after. So now I'm just going to pull through, and that's what it looks like. And then once you pull on this, it'll help close it. But now I'm just going to repeat what I did to the other side, just go all the way through, and then I'll be right back. So I made it back to the top on this side. So remember, at the end, I like to go through one side out to the other. So just push my needle through, and then now I'm going to flip it so I can work on the inside of the sweater. You can see the seam on the inside. I like to take my needle and then just push it back into the blue yarn. Well, I'm going through the gray first, but I have to go there so I can go straight to the blue. Sorry, the lighting keeps changing. I'm trying not to make it go yellow, but I don't know what's going on. So now that I'm into the blue, I'm gonna do the same thing where I put my yarn over my thumb. I'm going through a stitch, pulling through but not all the way, just enough till I have a loop, putting the needle through the loop and securing it. I'm gonna do that a couple more times until like I feel like it's secured, and then I'm going to cut off the rest of the yarn. But if you don't want to cut off the rest of the yarn, you can always weave it through the sweater instead. So I'll be back once I finish that. Alright guys, it's getting hard to show this on camera because I'm working with such a big piece, but now you see we have our top piece attached. So you can see this is what we sewed on. And remember I said we have that excess yarn on the side. So we're now going to sew on the sleeve. So for the sleeve, okay, so this is what our sleeve looks like. And you see where one part of the sleeve extends out more? That's going to be on the inside. So you want to match the other half, the one that's not curving outwards, to the top. So here's the top of the sweater. And I'm going to match it up like this. And then we're just going to sew along the sides, and we're still doing the mattress stitch, and I'm still going to be using the blue yarn. Hey guys, so there's actually going to be a part 4 because I couldn't get everything to load in one video, so I'll see you guys in part 4 for sewing on the rest of the arms.